Broadcasting live from an Airstream somewhere in Tornado Alley, bringing you the people, places, and stories from the Panhandle to the Red River. This is your Only in Oklahoma show.
And welcome to the show. We're headed to the Bigfoot Symposium in Stilwell, Oklahoma. We get to talk to DW, the executive director of the Mid-America Bigfoot Research Center. I'm Brett.
And I am Harley. So, Brett, we have done our fair share of kicking around in the woods in the great state of Oklahoma.
Yes, for lesser causes than this, I can assure you.
We've been camping all over the state. Dude, as a child, I distinctly remember just exploring stuff.
Everything.
Like a hole in the ground on the bank of a stream or a tunnel going like a waterway. What do they call those? A waterway?
Yeah, I don't know. But I know that in the more stagnant the pool of water, the more likely a chance of like tadpoles and crawfish and digging. What? Coronavirus? No way. Because if you played in the dirt, kids, if you got out and played with the sticks, in the sticks, you wouldn't get sick. You wouldn't.
I think that's part of the allure of the show for me.
Yeah.
Is when I was a kid, I loved exploring just the weirdest stuff. You know, this is a water runoff from the city, like a water drainage
But
pipe.
you didn't know. To you, it was like this massive thing from Mad Max or
Oh,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, it just had this other. Kids these days, they call you a nerd if you do that. Now, that was a Friday after school. That was a Saturday morning after cartoons activity, not some things just for kids that are weird. Everybody did it. We all did it.
I
And our
don't
parents,
know that everybody did it, but I
Well-
feel like everybody I knew did it.
our parents didn't care where we were.
I don't know if that's true or
No,
not.
I do. I'm 100% sure.
They told us.
As long as you weren't, if you were home by the time for me, be home by the time the street light comes on. We had a street light on the corner. If you weren't on the porch by the time that light and the porch light, which I guess they worked concurrently, if you weren't up, your ass was grass.
I think that was the exact phrase that was used.
Right. Your ass is grass and I'm the lawnmower. That was our childhood. But yes, we had a chance to talk to a really cool guy. I mean, D.W. Lee, he's the executive director.
He's an
He's
author.
running the show.
He runs the Mid-America Bigfoot Research Center. Cool guy.
Which is a really hard word, a big word to say in its entirety. That whole Mid-America people don't know this, but we both said it 6 times before the final edit of this show.
If you listen all the way to the end of the show, there'll probably be us butchering that in the outtakes.
Absolutely. But we got that interview and so much more coming up. All right. So my taxes are done. How about yours?
Completely done, yes.
So how many children did you write off? How many? I can't imagine. I just would love to see the math.
On my taxes?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't look at them. I send all of my tax information over to the Holliday Tax Group.
Maybe I should do that.
I would highly recommend it. That way you don't have to look at all the math. You don't have to figure out the paperwork behind it. You don't have to have a PhD in IRS.
Well, I have a write-off coming, but he doesn't arrive. He arrives after the taxes are due, so maybe next year.
Maybe you should call Justin over at the Holliday Tax Group for a free 30-minute consultation.
Yes, and as always, military and teacher personnel get 20% off.
You don't qualify for either one of those.
But I will be teaching a young man how to throw a spiral.
Check out Holliday Tax Group today at holidaytaxgroup.com.
That's Holiday with 2 L's. Well, coming up this weekend, it's the 8th annual Bigfoot Symposium in Stilwell, Oklahoma. And joining us today is the host and executive director of the Mid-America Bigfoot Research Center. It's D.W. Lee. D.W., welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys, for having me on here.
Absolutely. So, DW, I kind of want to just jump right to the hot points and maybe throwing you a curveball or maybe throwing you a softball here. Why in the world would Bigfoot come to Oklahoma? I know why I like Oklahoma, but what is it about Oklahoma that would make it a good habitat, good place to find Bigfoot?
Up in the Pacific Northwest, they have such a huge rainfall accumulation that basically makes it just like a rainforest. And in southeast Oklahoma and even northeast Oklahoma, we have such high rainfall accumulation that we can support all kinds of wildlife in this area. And of course, when you have the deer population, when you have, the wild hog population, and then of course, there's whole areas in the state where you can walk for 2 or 3 days and not see any houses or, roads. So there's still a lot of wooded territory and a lot of food sources that could support Bigfoot. And we have a lot of water sources. There's so many lakes and watersheds in this area that, you could support an army on one of these watersheds just from the food and the water.
So, DW, there are a lot of theories around Bigfoot. The Seminoles kind of look at Bigfoot as almost like a spirit. Some say it's an interdimensional traveler, while others think it's a bipedal. What is your theory?
It's a big screaming monkey.
Yeah,
It's, to me, it's all flesh and blood. It's got above average intelligence for an animal. It knows that when it sees humans out there with these little sticks that make a noise and a puff of smoke and a deer falls over dead, that they don't want to mess around with a human like that. So, I don't believe in what we call the woo side of Bigfooting, where Bigfoot can cloak, Bigfoot can go through dimensions, Bigfoot can do mind speak with you.
Right.
Most of the people that have encounters with Bigfoot are totally just freaked out because, you encounter something that you not normally would encounter. So some of them come back with these wild stories about, it mind spoke, it disappeared in front of me. Well, I've had the occasion of walking up on one that had hunkered down at the edge of a clearing at night, and I passed by it with my flashlight, and I thought it was just a shadow, and then when my flashlight come back, it stood up, and I realized it had concealed itself just by hunkering down like a bush, and that's what I thought it was until it stood up. So, people say, these things disappear through dimensions and all that. No, it's just, they can disappear through the woods pretty quick just because they know the woods.
You said you've stumbled upon one. How many times have you actually seen or encountered a Bigfoot?
I've had roughly about 26 encounters that I would say I encountered what I believe was a Bigfoot. But that's, 4,000 times out in the woods my entire life. So it really boils down to like 0.026% of the time that I've been in the woods, I've had an encounter.
Do you think that everyone is susceptible to that? It's kind of like, not in the same realm, but you kind of put it in the para category. Some people say they're more susceptible to encountering ghosts or spirits. Do you feel like some people are kind of a magnet for Bigfoot encounters, or is it something that anyone can do?
I think it's the attitude that you have when you're out in the woods. I used to research with a guy that was a bodybuilder, and he would work out and he would wear these little tight shirts that showed off all his muscles, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't have these encounters. And of course, me, I'm going to admit, I'm overweight. I don't work out like he did. But I didn't present. He was more like
a threat, maybe an adversary.
They looked at him as being threatening because here he was all bulked up, and me, I'm just walking through the woods, and I'm not out of shape, but I don't look like I would be a threat to a Bigfoot, as far as trying to take it on or anything. Most of your people that do have encounters, they're not out there in a threatening way. They're out there just walking through the woods or, out hunting and not really being aggressive towards anything. And that's when the Bigfoot pops up, and they have an encounter because the Bigfoot don't realize that, they're not aggressive. I don't have nothing to worry about, or they actually walk up on one and catch him off guard, so.
Well, I think if that's the case, then Brett and I probably... I think actually Bigfoot might be afraid of us because we might look like we're going to steal its food.
Well, we're a combination. We're a combination of the two things. I have strong legs and a terrible willpower against food. But so, speaking of people that can kind of go out and look, as far as freelance and amateur hunters go, is there tools of the trade that are affordable? Let's say you can't afford a parabolic recording device. What would you say to somebody that just wanted to, pack a backpack and head out into the woods?
For one thing, I'd recommend getting you a BB gun pistol. Oh. And I'll explain that here in a minute. Then, of course, a spool of thread and basically a camp chair, and you go out there and you just start you a fire. And if there's two of you, you face each other, but what you're actually doing is you're watching behind the person into the woods.
Right.
Because if you turn around and you're face away from the fire and you're looking into the woods, the Bigfoot won't, they're going to be like, okay, they're actually looking my direction. I can't move up on them. But if you're looking at each other and just talking, the Bigfoot will actually try to get closer. You're looking behind the other person. Now, let's talk about the BB gun. If you're sitting there in the woods and you see what you think is a shadow that's moving and you think it might be a Bigfoot, take your BB gun out and shoot at the shadow. If it moves, then it was an animal. If it don't move, then it was a shadow.
But TW, I don't mean to interrupt you here, but if you shoot at the shadow and it is Bigfoot, I don't know that I would like to be the guy that ticked him off.
Right. It sounds like you're taking a gun to a knife fight.
No, basically, if you think about it, Bigfoot gets bit by bugs all the time in the woods. A BB gun to him, it's going to feel like a bug bit him,
Right.
He will move because, crap, I got bit by a bug. I mean, don't go out there and act like Clint Eastwood, and Dirty Harry and just put your gun up there and start pulling the trigger. Just sit there with it in your lap, aim it in the general direction, pull the trigger, and you're out there to see Bigfoot. If it does get pissed off because you shot it with the BB gun,
right,
he's going to come out, to where you can see him. Now, the thread, people are like, okay, why do you want thread? Well, what you do is on trails around your camp, you go and string 3 strands of thread, 1 strand at 6 foot, 1 at 7 foot, 1 at 8 foot. And what will happen is if anything over 6 feet tall walks through, it'll break the bottom strand. If it's over 7 foot tall, it'll break the second strand as well. And then if it breaks the third strand, I'd recommend just going home because you don't want to stay out there with that big of a creature out there.
Well, you didn't say bring a step stool because I think if I'm stringing anything above 5'9", I'm going to have trouble.
Yeah, it's something that we recommend to people who think that they've got Bigfoot around their house. String up thread around the house, and that way, if it does get broke, I mean, you could have a elk or a horse come running through there, and break the thread. More than likely, you're going to see their hoof prints, along the trail there.
How did you become the executive director of the Mid-America Bigfoot Research Center?
Back in the 90s, we had Green Country Bigfoot Research Center. There was a bunch of us here in the Stilwell area that was going out looking for Bigfoot, so we created our own little group here to kind of give us a credibility. So, when we presented our evidence, we say, here, we do this as a group. We started attracting people from out of state. We originally got up to about 60, 70 members from across the country, so we decided to go ahead and change it. And since I had done all the groundwork and basically did all of our protocols and stuff like that, I just naturally ended up as being the executive director, and I've been that ever since.
So as far as the Bigfoot Symposium that's coming up in Stilwell, what exactly does that event look like? If we're coming down, this is our first go-around, what are we going to see?
We actually are having it at a location called CC Camp that's just south of Stilwell. What's amazing about this place is you can step out the back door of the building, look just right over the hill at one of our main research areas. I mean, we're right in the heart of a research area. You'll get to look at casts that have been collected from across the country. There's a few casts that'll be there that have been done locally. This year, we're going to show a juvenile cast that was cast during the filming of a OCO TV episode that we did a part of for Bigfoot. Then, of course, we're going to have a life-size Bigfoot figure there that people can take pictures with. You'll have speakers that you can listen to. They'll do presentations showing some of the evidence that they've collected, some of the evidence that's been collected around the country. You'll get to talk with the researchers. And, of course, we have concessions. We have Indian tacos. If you've never had an Indian taco, you at least come to the symposium just for the Indian taco. But then on Saturday night, we have night hikes where people from the symposium can come and go on night hikes with the researchers. We'll take them out, we'll set them in areas and let them listen for about an hour. And then they'll come back and sit around the campfire with the researchers, and they can pick their mind or listen to stories or, whatever they want. Then on Sunday, we have a few more presentations, and then we have a town hall meeting where people can ask more questions about Bigfoot, learn more, talk to the researchers. They'll get to look at some of the equipment we use, like thermals. So it's really a great event. And then, of course, we have our door prizes at the end of the day on Sunday, where we have a whole bunch of Bigfoot memorabilia and cast stuff like that we go and have drawings for. So it's really a big event.
DW, I was we were researching for the show and kind of seeing how to pack, how to dress, and I feel personally attacked because it says, please, no Crocs. They make camouflage Crocs, DW. I've seen them. But I guess if you're running from a creature that means you harm, it's probably not the best traction trying to get the hell out of Dodge. But
and you also got to remember that when we go on these night hikes, the main reason no Crocs, no open shoes or sandals like that is because we've already seen snakes out.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You don't want to be walking down that trail and little old snake snap at you, boom, there Absolutely. You go. You had Crocs on and you didn't have no protection.
We were warned.
Yeah.
So, of all of those activities, and don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against all of the other activities, but the one that caught my attention more than anything is that night hike, the after dark kind of program. What brought that on? I know that's a little bit different from things that I've heard before. And again, Brett and I are absolutely not skeptics. We're not hardcore believers. We're tourists in this particular endeavor. So, what made you do that night hike situation? It's something I had never heard of before.
Well, this will be, I believe, our 7th year of doing it. People ask if they could go out to the researcher camp, and some of them the first year kind of wandered off, and I had to send a couple of researchers to round them up because, it's like, hey, you guys, if you get lost out here, we're going to spend most of our night trying to find you. The next year we decided, okay, let's do a night hike, take them out, let them sit for a little while, let them listen, and they're going to be in probably one of the most active areas in the country right now. We do a lot of research here. We've had a lot of encounters in this area, a lot of great audio, and we've even got thermal captures of Bigfoot coming up and looking at the camps. We decided, okay, let's take them out on these night hikes. That way we control the situation. We don't have 50 people running through the woods, thinking that the person that they hear running by them or is a Bigfoot or whatever. What we do is this year we're going to kind of crank it up a little bit. We have what we call the premium night hike. What that is we've got a couple of four-wheeler buggies that we're going to load some people up, and we're going to take them across the creek into the valley where we do a lot of our research at. And they're going to go up by an old abandoned deer camp and sit further up into the valley than what the regular night hikes are going to be. Of course, everybody be in communication. They'll be with researchers, that way they're not freaking out. And then, of course, the regular night hikes will be down along a trail along where we've had encounters. Where one of the listening posts is going to be is where 12 individuals seen a Bigfoot step out of the water, out of the creek, and stand behind a V-shaped tree for probably 4 or 5 minutes before they turned off their lights just for a split second, turned it back on, and that Bigfoot had took off through the river reed behind it. So we're putting you right there where there's been encounters at. I can't guarantee you that something's going to happen. If it does, great. If not, hey, you got to go out there and listen in these areas where there has been encounters.
Well, DW, a few years ago, we went to Honubby, and we weren't quite to town. Nobody told me to go here, but it seemed like a good place to turn around and take a leak. We were on a dead-end road trying to get to where we were going. I got out of the car to go urinate, and I heard what I can't explain. It wasn't a cow. It wasn't a coyote. I don't know. It was something, but it made a whoop that echoed through the valley down there. Number one, it made it real easy to finish. Number two, it made it real easy to get back to the car. But I had never experienced anything like that because I don't get out and do that type of thing. I've always been kind of a haunted house, bumps, things that go bump in the night kind of kid. This was something I'd never heard before, and I didn't ask for it, and it wasn't like we were close to town, so you couldn't say it was some type of a setup. I mean, again, like Harley said, we're not skeptics, we're not hardcore believers, we're tourists that sometimes you accidentally stumble across stuff like this, and it catches you off guard, and there's just no way to explain it. You can't explain it away, and you can't really explain what it is.
Yeah, a lot of the times that these encounters happen, people are not ready for it. Everybody says, well, with all these cell phone cameras, we should have better pictures. But like you wasn't expecting that to happen, and of course, you had your hands full. So,
well, thank you for I appreciate the compliment, but that might be a stretch. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so you didn't have your cell phone in your hand,
right?
So you wasn't expecting to catch anything like that. That happens a lot. One of the times that we did have a encounter in the valley, I was the lead four-wheeler. I didn't have my camera running on the front, which I regret, but I had somebody on the four-wheeler with me, and I thought, okay, well, I got two sets of eyes, so if I see anything go across the trail, we'll be ready. Just as the Bigfoot come running across the trail, she started yawning, and so she missed it, but luckily it come back around behind us and jumped across the trail behind us, and another researcher seen it do that. But, here she was, she was yawning. She wasn't expecting anything to happen all of a sudden. And then, boom, there it was. So that's just the way it seems to work. You're not ready for it, and boom, it happens. So,
DW, and again, you've been doing this for a long time, so I'm positive that you probably thought of this. But just in case you hadn't, Brett and I are huge fans of the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I'm thinking one of those giant rope net traps would be a good way. Has that been tried? Why didn't we catch him? What do we need to do to get one of these guys to come visit Oklahoma City?
Well, truthfully, I think what's going to end up happening is in the end, it's going to take a logging truck hitting one, or when you try to set traps for these things, your body scent at the trap. I mean, they're going to avoid anything that has your scent on it. People have said, well, why don't you try to tranquilize one? Well, we don't know how much tranquilizer is going to be needed to take one down. And even then, we may put too much tranquilizer in there. And for people that don't want to kill one, that would be the wrong thing to do, is put too much tranquilizer into it. So as far as catching one, I really wouldn't want to be a part of that team, because once you piss him off, how are you going to sedate him and keep him under control and everything else? He's going to be trying to tear things apart.
Well, if you remember Harry and the Hendersons, they just tied him on the didn't they just tie him on the top of the station wagon? I don't think it ends the way that it begins. But
yeah.
So DW, the symposium coming up March the 7th and the 8th, all those questions that people have ready to be answered. It sounds like quite an experience out there, but what if they want to get in touch with you? What is the best way to do that?
The best way to do that is actually go to our website at www.mabrc.com and just click on the contact information there. They can email me. I think my phone number is on there even. If not, it will be at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm always open to everybody contacting me. Sometimes it gets a little overwhelming at times. I'll have to have some of my other researchers make some of these phone calls, but
sure,
people can get a hold of us.
Awesome. We'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. We were discussing the symposium coming up this weekend. Before, you had said there were some issues with hotels already being sold out and that sort of thing. Are there any last-minute bits of information that we want to pass along to the general public?
There are hotels in Salisaw, Tahlequah, and Siloam Springs, Arkansas. They're within 30 minutes of Stilwell. So, it's not like they still can't get a hotel room close enough to drive down. It's about a 20, 25-minute drive from each one of those towns. If you do plan on going on the night hikes, they're on the website. We actually list some of the things that you should bring, mainly a chair to sit in at the fire if you're going to sit at the fire, of course, a flashlight, and like we discussed, no Crocs, no sandals,
Still offended by that, but that's okay. I mean, I get it.
If you do have a parabolic or night vision that you want to bring along, you're more than welcome to bring your own equipment. One of the things that we do say is, don't wander off from the camp without at least letting a researcher know that you're, if you got to go to the bathroom, at least just let us know that you're going to be out in the woods. That way, if we see something with the thermal, we know which direction not to point it in because you're over there using a bathroom.
Right. If there's a pile of heat signature,
yeah,
in a heat signature, I get what you're saying. So, DW, we really appreciate you coming on the show. It sounds like it's going to be a ton of fun, informative, educational, kid friendly. Probably sounds like.
Oh yeah, it's definitely for the whole family. We, matter of fact, speaking of for the kids, we will be having nature hikes on Saturday, one in the morning, one in the afternoon for kids right there at the location. Probably won't see any Bigfoot tracks, but, we're going to take them down through there and see if they can find any animal tracks and, be a nice little jaunt for the little kids to go out on.
All right, well, DW, again, thank you so much for being on the show, and if we want to come be legends in the sense of disappearing in the woods and never to be found again, we know where to be. It's the symposium, the Bigfoot Symposium, coming up this weekend in Stilwell, Oklahoma. Thanks again.
I appreciate it, guys.
I think we got a lot to unpack here.
There's a lot.
We said it during the show.
Yeah.
We are tourists to this.
We are tourists. We are not experts. Regardless of what you have heard about us, we are the basic of basic adventurers.
We are.
I didn't even swim when we did the Medicine Park Challenge. I kind of just sank to the bottom and then hoped to float back up. So I'm a rook.
I agree 100%, but I have lots of questions.
Yeah.
And I feel like it just wasn't the right environment. I mean, the show's...
You wanted to poke a bear or a Bigfoot.
The symposium's coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
And I feel like we had a lot of time to waste, but I have questions.
Okay.
Here's a question.
Sure. Is it a legitimate question?
It's a serious question. Okay. Do the Bigfoots...
Oh, gosh.
Dude, okay, right there.
I know, but you act like you've never spoken about this creature before.
What is the plural of Bigfoot?
I don't know. It's like Elvi. Like more than one Elvis is considered Elvi.
Okay,
I don't know.
See, I have a question inside of a question. But anyway.
Bigfooters.
A Bigfoot in Washington State.
Right.
Does it think that the Oklahoma Bigfoot has like a weird accent?
I don't know, but that's one of those questions that I never have the answer for. I had a 12-year-old ask me yesterday if they announce that they have ground rules on an airplane in the sky, is it still technically ground rules? I had to think about it for a second. So yeah, I don't know. But in all seriousness, though,
okay,
we as a collective, as a community, as a society that have been following Bigfoot since the Patterson films, some even earlier than that. The legends go back as early as written history of these things.
Native American legends go way back, yeah.
Right. Cave walls. Where are they at?
Again, I'm not an expert.
No.
So I hear all of the arguments for and against Bigfoot,
but there are a lot of excuses too.
I just want, and again, back to what I said in the interview, can we put out some traps? And if they can smell people, then can we, I don't know, like wear gloves
or no, do like Arnold did in Predator and cover yourself in mud and be like, you ugly, you know where I'm going with that.
Exactly. But I feel like, and then, there's the issue with the bodies. Where do they go after they die? After they die. And, then you've got the arguments for whether, you're a hunter and you see a Bigfoot, should you shoot it?
Right.
Or not? I don't know the answers to these questions. I don't even know if they're questions that need to be asked, but I feel like, I don't know.
I feel like
I feel confused.
Well, I think it goes in a category, and this is going to sound, and this isn't me. I'm not demeaning or downplaying the idea of the Bigfoot, but I think it goes in it almost feels like it's, and he kind of touched on it a little bit without saying it. It's all what your attitude and it's like a perception thing. If you don't believe, if you don't receive. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I just want to see something. We grew up watching monster movies. So the idea of monsters in the darkness isn't a new concept, obviously. But if you're going to tell me that there is something just beyond the tree line, and it's always just beyond the tree line, or it's just over the ridge, or it's just out of view, and show me, eventually we're going to see something that's definitive, right?
I don't know, man. I feel like it's beyond us. And we don't spend time researching this. I hate to be the guy that says it doesn't matter what the event was, but let's be honest, we love Oklahoma events.
Yeah.
They could be doing a
it's still
koala
cool.
bear race in Stilwell, Oklahoma, and we'd still think it was cool.
Right.
So, the fact that they've got this, it's different. I've never heard of one of these events being, the nighttime night hike.
Right.
And, even though he said that's not that uncommon, or they've done it for a few years now, I've never heard of it.
Right. Even if you go just to hear some campfire tales about Bigfoot, I love to hear stories as much as I love to tell stories. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And like you said, we've been out in the dark before in the state of Oklahoma and heard weird things. It's, when you turn the lights out, it's easier to...
Right.
It's easier to hear something spooky if if you're already scared.
I remember as a kid, I would turn the lights off and I would play. I was a weird kid. I had, haunted house sound cassette tapes. I would turn the lights off and play those cassettes and just kind of let my imagination take over. And when that happens sometimes, when things look different in the dark, things feel different in the dark.
I don't know if this should be left up to believers.
Right.
Or believers and skeptics, or is us being in the middle of the road on this issue or on this topic, does that make us poor presenters of the information?
I don't know. I mean, we've been accused of being poor presenters of information before. Maybe in the same wheelhouse of, we're trying to downplay it, but yes, we've been accused of less. And,
at the end of the day, I feel like this is one of those issues. If you were a skeptic, then we didn't do enough to beat Bigfoot up, which again, I'm not pointing. I see a big shadow in the woods. I'm not shooting it with a BB gun. I'm sorry, DW. You seem like a very intelligent guy that really knows this stuff.
Oh, I'll be a shadow in the woods.
But if I see a shadow in the woods, I'm going to scream. It'll probably sound like a little girl, and I'm going to run the other way.
But be careful. It may sound like a mating call. Anyway, what do you think? What do you think? Are we too hard on them? Are we too easy on them? I kind of feel like I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the folklore.
Absolutely, I am. 100%.
Yeah, not a question about it.
I'm a fan of what they're doing in Stilwell.
Right.
I like the idea of learning different research procedures and learning about the lore, that sort of thing. I'm all in when it comes to that. But again, and not to take anything away from it, I probably would have been all in if it was rattlesnakes.
Or if it was, a strawberry festival.
Absolutely. Stilwell, Oklahoma is the strawberry capital of the world. So,
right. So, well, if you're looking for strawberries or you're looking to stomp around the woods, head to Stilwell.
Before we wrap up this show, though, we have
a call to action.
Well, I don't know if it's call to action. We have more tickets to give away for the Oklahoma City Pop Culture Con coming up on March 21st.
21st and 22nd, yes.
So you need to, if you want to go for free, if you want to go on the OnlyinOKShow dime, head over to OnlyinOKShow on Facebook or Twitter.
Right.
Follow the instructions on the pinned post that tells you how to win tickets.
It's simple. You've seen them a million times. Like, share, comment. You have to do all three of those things, or you're going to be smited. Sacked. You will all failures to do so. You will be sacked.
So we had quite a few entries in last week's drawing.
Yeah,
and quite a few were disqualified because they didn't do part of the instructions. So if you do all three, you've got a great chance of going to the OKC Pop Culture Con for free.
Yes. And attention, Jeffrey Mussman, if you're listening, check your freaking DMs, dude. You can't win if you don't check in. Well, this has been the Only in OK Show. I'm Brett.
And I'm Harley, and we're out of here.
Peace. What if it's real and we're just, it's the joke is on us? XYZ. I know, man, but we're just a couple of guys.
Yeah, but
Look, I've been driving with a bad headlight for a month, and I can't attract a cop, let alone attract a Bigfoot with a flashlight in the woods. But I have heard some. Well, today's show, it's big. It has feet. It's often not seen. That's right. It's Bigfoot. Coming up next. On today's show, it's the biggest thing you've never seen. Or maybe you have. It's Bigfoot. Coming up next. What has two thumbs and hides in plain sight? Give up? Bigfoot. Coming up next.
That's so stupid.
Well, it doesn't have two thumbs. We don't know. Coming up next.
You, bro.
In comedy, we call that bombing. Just kidding. The only catch is you're going to have to edit this part. Welcome to da-da-da-da-da. That freaking dog is walking the neighborhood is what it is, because I saw those dogs run to the other side.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And on today's episode. Today's episode. No, I'm not. No, I know. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to. On today's episode of the OnlyinOKShow, we are in search of. On this episode of OnlyinOK in search of. I like you did that. This has been the longest 9 months of my life. Fix me up there, will you, Daddy?
There you go. Let's row.
Okay. 3.
I really don't want to.
Can I just say we're going back to our roots? No. Okay. Because we haven't won an award on this show yet. And we get to talk to D.W. Lee, the executive director, told, what is it?
He runs the Mid-America Big...
3, 2, 1.